for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Well, thank you, Greg. And, you know, it's a tragedy that we've got to be talking about the destruction of our country. And as you, in your introduction, stated, when I started on talk radio 26 years ago, it was a statement I made that infuriated a lot of people, including those on the right. I said, within a very short period of time in our lifetime, we're going to see the United States thrust into a civil war, and it would be based on ethnic issues. Ethnic meaning obviously race war, but it would also be the globalists and the one world order, the new world order people doing their best to destroy this great country of ours, the United States of America. And since that statement 26 years ago, we've seen the downward progression of the United States in all realms. We've seen the traitors in our elected highest, positions of the land, you know, starting, in my opinion, from George Bush Sr. forward, basically doing everything they could to give the enemies of the United States the advantage. The technology that was sold to China under Bush Sr., Greg, I interviewed the inventor of the neutron bomb before he passed away. And he was on my radio show numerous times talking about the fact that he was present when the neutron bomb, the ultimate weapon in the Defense Department's arsenal, the plans were given to the Chinese. Fast forward to the Clinton administration, Loral Satellite Corporation. Now we're at a time period where our enemies are so technologically advanced. And what do we see? We see in the United States now, failure after failure. We see entire, if you will, weapon systems being pretty much placed into obsolescence by newer statements, and China and Russia going full bore in the realm of developing weapon systems. So this is what really causes me concern. And we're at war, Greg. People better understand that. Not just an ideological war, but we're at a technological war, a financial war. We're seeing the global control masters, the puppet masters, controlling every aspect of the American economy. And I've told people this, the stock market is like the hypnotist amulet. People watch that to think that's a good indicator of where the economy is going. That's absolutely the worst indicator, because that just tells you what the manipulators and their algorithmic trading programs are being able to do. So today on this show, I hope we cover what's just behind the headlines, because it's very dire. You know, I was making the statement, I believe it was one of the writers for one of the recent articles in, good night, it was in the American Thinker magazine. I forget the author's name, maybe Trevor Thomas, forgive me. I always want to give attribution. He said, today's liberalism isn't merely intrinsically evil, but rather inherently evil. What we're seeing is those words playing out right before our eyes. And as you and I are recording this right now, for broadcast, you know, you want to mention that they have found the supposed bomber, and this, you and I are in agreement, Greg, that this was an empathy bombing. Go ahead and bring that to your audience's attention.
Well, no matter how they play it, no matter if I don't think it's a far right winger, but I mean, you'll know. But by the time this comes out, there'll be a lot more information out about it. But no matter what it is, they're playing it to the hilt. You have Robert De Niro, the creepy, visceral weasel. Robert De Niro, the man in the world of pretend, who wants to tell us how to live. Robert De Niro, who wants to punch the president in the face. I think he said that one time. He says, well, they have their bombs, and we have our votes, and votes are stronger than bombs. I mean, votes for what? Votes for open border, new world order, universal basic income, higher taxes, less rights, destruction of the Constitution. You mean votes for that? Because they can't run on what they want to do to us.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And here's the deal with the voting and the immigration. What most people don't understand is this is a long plan that has been lived out. It's been basically put into place. Look at the American male sperm count. Now, somebody said, well, how are they getting there? Real simply this, is that the mullahs of Islam have made this statement that their women's wombs will be the victorious weapon over the West. The American male sperm count is absolutely atrocious. Same thing with Russia, by the way. And it's fascinating to me that there seems to be this incredible hate. And isn't it fascinating that to control the dialogue and discourse, anybody that even brings up, hey, look, we've got issues in this country that go beyond the buzzword of the left, racism. And what we're seeing is Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, I think it's number 13, just overwhelm everybody with everything. And that's why the tragic display of fake bombs in the mail with the coordinated delivery of the left to make it look like it's the right, I think people better understand this. The President of the United States is still the President of the United States, although half the country doesn't want to accept that.
Well, that's what they tell us, and I'm not so sure that's right.
Yeah,
that's what they tell us. I don't believe any of the polls.
Well, I don't believe any of the polls either, except the president of Poland. I think what he has to say is very valid. I'm not being a smart aleck there. I really do. Same thing with the president of Hungary, Viktor Orban, probably one of the brightest, most concise men in the world. But let's get on to what's going on in the United States. The racial tension had it had decreased until Obama came on the scene. And remember his famous statement that America's the greatest country in the world and we intend to change all that? I submit to you, Greg, and I submit to your listeners that we're seeing that play out. So we're seeing now the words, even of the Guatemalan president, that 100 ISIS members have been arrested that were joining the caravan. And by the way, let's call it what it is. It is the invasionary tip of the spear. Why is the American middle class is dying dead and soon to be like the albatross? Simply this, because the immigrants are being given all the benefits, and it's called displacement. And those who fought for this country, died for this country, i.e. its vets, i.e. those of us who have been patriotic, those of us who have been sounding the alarm for a quarter decade or longer, we're in the position now of being called the enemy.
Not a quarter decade, 25 years.
Yes.
A quarter century.
Quarter century, yeah, thank you. I guess we've come to the point where a quarter of a century is the accurate statement, and we're seeing now the implementation of the destruction of the United States in all realms. And look,
but hold on. Let's give some people some hope here now. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton was supposed to finish us off. I mean, I'm clear about that. I'm good with that. What she wanted to do, because there were limits to the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and limits to the First. They wanted to limit the Constitution. They hate the Constitution. That's why they hated Kavanaugh, because he's going to stick to the Constitution. But their plan's been disrupted. There's some hope here, right?
Oh, there's lots of hope, because here's the thing. Lots of hope. And the hope is that people are now seeing these guys have overplayed their hands. And by the way, guys is an understatement. These entities, what you're seeing is every form of warfare in all realms. You're seeing it in the political. And there is hope, because Jesus said, and whether you want to acknowledge this or not, ye shall know the truth shall set you free. Isn't it amazing that the mainstream media accuses the right of lies and accuses everybody that empirically can document what they say, as you can, as I can, in 14 books, as we spent the research. But you see, they have to denigrate. They have to kill the messengers because they're scared to death of the message.
Oh, they're total propaganda. I mean, the mainstream media has turned into total propaganda.
But propaganda is nice. They're totally instruments of mind control. Who was it? The former head of the CIA that said, well, no, our efforts have been effective when everything the American people believe is a lie. Well, they didn't judge one group of people. And, you know, the war on the First Amendment, those who kill free speech will also kill those who choose to speak it and to utilize that aspect of our Bill of Rights.
Let's talk about the Civil War you think that could happen. You think it's coming. How bad is this going to get? Now, some people say we're going to have civil unrest and we're going to have civil war in some big cities, but we won't go full-blown civil war, which I think will end the same way the first one did for the Democrats. That's who the South was, the Democrats. The Ku Klux Klan, that was the South. That's the slave owners were the Democrats. And they wanted to keep slaves, and Republicans didn't. So it's going to end the same for the for the Democrats. Is that right? If it gets that far, why do you think we're headed for a civil war, and how bad could it get in your mind?
Well, first of all, I believe that the Civil War is part of the fifth column and the plans of both the Russian and the Chinese military to initiate a civil war, to turn a country against itself. A nation divided cannot stand, a house divided will not stand. If you look at all of the pre-positioning of weapons throughout the country, and Fast and Furious was Little League compared to what really went on. You remember the fear and the fuss over all of the expenditures for DHS ammo and weapons, and all, by the way, of the reports that I'm getting, Dave Hodges, others are getting, of the amount of weapons going from all over the world into Mexico, into Latin America, being distributed even in the gangs of the United States. That's one thing I don't think people really recognize, is that the gangs have adopted more of a military positioning than just simply a criminal positioning like the old La Cosa Nostra, if you will, the mafia. So we're now watching an extreme technological advancement in weaponry. The worry about drones, the worry about autonomous drones, the worry about intercepting U.S. military drones and redirecting armed drones against the people that thought they were in control of the drones. The amount of algorithms being initiated by foreign governments and sold on the dark web. The amount of weapon systems available to those who have money. So here's what I'm saying. People had better thank God, and this will make, I don't care who it makes furious, but Donald Trump has done more for freedom. And here's the thing, people don't like his morality, they don't like this, they don't like that. Tell me, who was responsible for telling the government of South Africa, we're not going to sit by and allow you to wipe out whites, cut their throats, and steal their land? Donald Trump. Who was responsible for getting the American pastor held hostage in Turkey? Donald Trump. Who has done more, according to Franklin Graham, and by the way, I wholeheartedly agree with him, to stop and make it clear that it's not open season on Christians any longer? It's Donald Trump, and it's also Vice President Pence. So when I talked about Civil War 26 years ago, what was in the back of my mind, and I've defined it through literally hundreds of hours of broadcasts, if not thousands, is the idea that you have to turn the nation on itself in order to take advantage and exploit, especially if we're coming to a foreign invasion. And I got news for you. I stand by that statement. I don't know when. I don't know if God's given us a 4-year reprieve or an 8-year reprieve. But the hardest thing for people to accept is the fact that there are belligerent nations out there just licking their chops, waiting to move in on the kill.
And Canada, the weasel, that little weasel Trudeau, and I'm being very disrespectful, he's allowed the Canadians on the West Coast to install sensitive electronic equipment under the water to listen to our submarine base.
Absolutely. And I think
weasel. And yes, every weasel Canadian that voted for him, who do they think protects them with 80 battle tanks and 60 fighter aircraft? Who do you think they could stop with that kind of an army? That'd be nobody.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Over the years on talk radio, I couldn't know what I know, just like you have people that tell you stuff, Greg. I have people that tell me stuff going on record. But the Canadians and those who were, if you will, in the deep background of the New World Order have supposedly made a deal with both the Chinese and the Russians.
And not all the Canadians. Not all the Canadians.
I'm talking about the Trudeauites,
yes,
okay?
I'm talking the Weaselites.
The Weaselites, okay? And because I'm trying to be kinder and nicer, I won't say what I really think of them. But listen, the Canadians have a right to know, did Justin Trudeau convert to Islam? Yes, he did. Is he making a way for ISIS at the expense of Canadians? Is he persecuting Christians? Yes, he is. Is he absolutely behind, if you will, a fifth column being brought into Canada, known ISIS members? And is he setting up, if you will, a frontal assault upon the United States? And has he made a deal with the devils? And I believe the answer to that is yes.
He is a supreme weasel. And anybody that votes for that is an idiot. I got to tell you, and it's because he wants to open up a dual front, just like Hitler in Germany. You know, he had to fight two fronts: the Russians on one side, and the Brits, and the Americans, and what was left of the French army on the other side. So I mean, but that's not going to work out well for him. That's not going to work out well for Canada.
And what would you say to know the money we spend on our nuclear subs? One, key part of our triad, our defense, having the Chinese putting in military listening posts off of Canada's northwestern border to the United States, southwestern border to the United States, and being able to track the motion of submarines. Listen, the amount of money that's spent in satellite, ASAT, and tracking of submarines is astronomical. And yet nobody that I know of in the Pentagon, if I were the president, I'd call my Joint Chiefs and I'd have a meeting and saying,
I'd strike it. I'd attack it. I'd attack it and let Canada say something about it. I would.
Yep.
I'd destroy it.
Why is there silence? Okay. And then remember when Obama was firing all of the commanders, the generals and the admirals?
Yeah, that's been turned around,
Yeah, that is confirmed. But listen, do you remember also, Greg, he made them take an oath of allegiance to him? My question is, how many of those guys still exist in the U.S. military? And haven't we just heard that even General Mattis is on the chopping block, potentially? So let me ask you, how can you drain the swamp when you've got a swamp breeding program within your own State Department? When you have an intelligence agency that cooperated and the leading law enforcement to throw you out before you even got elected? How can you trust those guys? And when you've got an attorney general that seemingly recused himself on the Russia thing, and the whole Russia thing, look, it was the Hillary Clinton selling us down the drain to the Russians in our uranium production and all of those issues that Trump advisors should have seized on the opportunity to show people the root of evil, not the fruit of evil. And that's what you and I are talking about today. It's the root of evil. And I'm sorry, I believe there's hope. I believe God always has his ram in the bush. That means his people who look to him, he will lead them, guide them. And isn't it interesting? The Bible says that God's people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Now you've got a war in Christianity. You've got a war in the Catholic Church. When I said that 25 years ago, and by the way, the war that's in the Catholic Church will turn into a shooting war. You see, Greg, nobody wants to talk about this stuff. Nobody wants to admit that if the foundations be destroyed, I didn't say this, Solomon said this, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? And when the wicked rule, the righteous languish. And now you've got total lawlessness, which is a mystery of iniquity that the Apostle Paul spoke about, lawlessness, and it's no mystery anymore. Lawlessness is when each man does that which is right in their own sight. And now you've got a generation that's growing up that knows only one thing, that rebellion is cool. But the snowflakes have got to understand that when the sun comes out in extreme heat, they're going to melt. And I believe that sun is coming out in not a, if you will, cosmic setting, but in a war setting.
But
and I'm sorry, again, I'm not hopeless, but I'm just telling people they better get it, that they better understand that this is a civil war in the making, and it's being stoked by foreign powers and foreign money.
And you think it'll be an asymmetrical civil war? You won't have like a battle line with the North and the South. I mean, this is going to be a civil war all over the country. Is that how you would describe it, or tell me how you would describe it?
Yeah, no, I think it's good. Asymmetrical, i.e., guerrilla warfare, followed by invasion. Now, again, people don't even go there, and we're talking.
You think? I want to back up.
Yep.
Guerrilla warfare followed by invasion. Invasion by who, from where?
Both Russia and China, and I'll tell you who will be joining them. This will make people upset, but Germany has a large dislike for the United States now, and if you understand why, look at what Angela Merkel has done to Germany, look at what's happening in Germany, look at what's happening in all of Western Europe, and then imagine that those same forces that are using the turmoil within the different countries to initiate a global jihad, because here's the deal. People have got to understand the New World Order is about out with the old world, the old world order, basically the foundation of Christianity and that which made, I would say, the world a better place, to substitute a Luciferian, elitist world and the destruction of mankind. Look, Greg, when we talk about AI, artificial intelligence, we talk about assassination algorithms. And I wrote about it in my book Terminated, which, by the way, people love that book because it's telling what's going on. And you go to the front of Drudge, and every day there's something more dire about autonomous killing machines. What happens when autonomous robots start programming other autonomous robots apart from, quote, human constraint? I'm going to tell you what happens. It's you get the Terminated movie. Now, some people say, well, you're really negative. Well, I can tell you this, when you tell the truth, the response to the truth initially is denial. A good example, when they were blaming Russia for using Novichok, I'm going to hold up a book here. It's no longer in print. It's called Breathe No Evil. This one got me in a lot of trouble. It's about understanding biological terrorism and chemical weapons, etc. On the back, 17 years ago, Greg, I said this: coupled with this threat are the new Novichok series of chemical weapons that the Soviets have designed. As little as 500 pounds can kill 500,000 people. Can you read the handwriting on the wall? By the way, Novichok meant newcomer, and it was a binary chemical weapon. 17 years ago, all of a sudden it shows up in the press in the last 6 months. Again, Novichok, a supposed chemical weapon that the Russians are using on their enemies or spies they want to take out. It's no way. The after effects of Novichok, and they're not going to leave it out there. So here's what I'm saying. The control of the mainstream media is for the destruction of the United States. Everything that we stand for. It's what Michael Savage has been saying, borders, language, culture. And people still don't understand that when you come into a country, look at any place else in the world. You just can't go into any place else in the world. You get visas, you get to stay. And I'm not against legal immigration. I am against the advance guard of the Trojan, and let's call it what it is, immigration army of conquest. The Trojan immigration army of conquest.
And you think the mainstream media is the big arm that helps them?
Well, absolutely, because again, what do most people know? Only what they're told. Let me have a drink here. I'm sorry. Only what they're told. And who was it? Somebody famous in history, maybe it was Goering or Goebbels, one of the Nazis, said, thank God, which I don't think they were thanking the God, that people don't think anymore. And look at how easy it has been to get Antifa, Black Lives Matter. Look at how easy it's been to turn the police against the people and the people against the police. So the thing is that, in my opinion, based on history, we are undergoing the first phase of the initiating of a total civil war. When you got Nancy Pelosi using military terms, calling for, getting rid of their political enemies as collateral damage. Collateral damage is when the military bombs the hell out of some place or some things and the innocent get killed. And that's the point. People need to go back and do their homework on the Weather Underground in the 70s. And Larry Grathwohl's wonderful interview, Grathwol, I think.
Yeah, he said that he sat in a room and listened to them say that they had to kill 25 million people to get their way. Their
way was a socialist communist takeover of the United States. And by the way, I think it was 30 million. It doesn't matter, but if you take that in today's population versus the population where it was, that's up to 100 million. So the thing that I think is critical for people to understand is they've got to get out and they've got to vote. If you believe that the Democrats have the answer, and by the way, spineless rhinos, Republicans in name only, i.e. Rhino. What is it? Paul Ryan the Spino, or spineless one, and those who have taken on the continual harassment of the president, and also the defense intelligence agencies and the different, not only defense intelligence, DIA, but CIA, NSA, all of those people that are outspoken, from the former directors of the CIA, NSA, the whole hatred that's shown to the President of the United States, what they say when they want to return to normal is they want to return to their control and their plan for the destruction of the United States of America. Believe it or not, the Deagle survey, Deagle's like the Rand Corporation on a lesser scale, is talking about a 70% depopulation of the United States over the next 10 years or sooner. So how do they come up with those numbers? Now we've got the situation, I got to touch on this, Greg, because we only have so much time, that people have got to understand that these biological oddities that are showing up, whether it's a recurrence of polio, whether it's the outbreak of hoof and mouth disease, I think it's at Dartmouth College, hoof and mouth disease. We're seeing the words of Paul Harvey coming to pass. And one of the things that he said is, if I were the devil, and people should look this up, Paul Harvey on the internet, if I were the devil, he said, if I were the devil, the prince of darkness, what methods of deception would I use to rule the world? If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves. So that's pretty succinct, and I think he said that in the late 60s. That's where we're at. And so what do? You do what you do on talk radio to warn and hopefully turn. And I, of all people, would not have been on talk radio going through all the baloney, BULLONEY, that I've had to put up with on talk radio to try and get people to arrive. Now, of course, when you tell them something, Greg, and they finally come to that conclusion, then it's an original thought. But now we're at the point where we're seeing the plan, the implementation, whether it's a new strain of Ebola, whether it's the open source code for Ebola pox or mouse pox, or some new variant of the Spanish flu in 1918, and the ability of biochemists in their basement, pretty much with enough money and the right equipment, they can launch attacks in this country that most people can't even grasp. So I tell people, and obviously as a Bible-believing Christian, this is the most important election in your life, in your children's life, and if their grandchildren are meaningful to you in their life. You cannot allow Hollywood and the New York Times and Clinton News Network and the mainstream media that's coming up with all these. Did you ever think, Greg Hunter, you would see a New York Times article, a short story on different people writing about killing Trump coming from his own Secret Service? That happened the other day in the New York Times.
Truly evil, my friend. The New York Times is proving over and over again they're not the news. They're not the paper of record. They are the propaganda. They are the absolute evil incarnate. For them to publish something like this, and then they say, "Oh, they was some stupid without fear or favor," or what's the Washington Post? The truth dies in the dark. Yeah, no, the truth dies with propaganda, and you guys are it.
Well,
Bob Woodruff, give back your Pulitzer. You're a weasel. You're a supreme weasel. But I wanted to get back to the desperation, and I see this caravan, another desperate, just a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks before the midterms. These bombs that come out, that none of them explode. What they're up to, I don't know, 13, 12, 13. None of them exploded. They're so childish and stupid that they're 0 for 12 or 13 or 14 or whatever they are. Then they finally caught the guy. Also all the crazy attacks. You would think that Donald Trump has a bomb-making factory inside the White House and is sending this down to Florida so one of his minions can send it out, which is, I'm being very sarcastic. It's all Donald Trump's fault. And Robert De Niro, they have bombed. They have who? They, them. They're bombing themselves. They have bombs. We have votes. Is there an air of desperation? They know they're doing bad. Obama comes out, there's 2,000 people that will see him. Trump comes out, there's 50,000 people that are waiting to see him. They must know they're doing bad. They must know they're losing the middle. They've lost the right. They're losing the middle. They're losing the independent voter. Is there an air of desperation that you see?
Well, absolutely. And I believe the number in Houston was closer to 100,000, it turned out, for President Trump. See, Trump's motto, "Make America Great Again," is opposed to Obama's slogan 92 times. And I think that speech he gave where he referred to himself, I. So he wants to make himself great again. And he could care less about the country. Even the balls of the guy taking credit for the economy. We all know the numbers. Hey, you can go look at the numbers yourself. So here is the issue, I think, at the bottom line. When people allowed the biblical foundation of this country, hey, like it or leave it, there was a different time and a different period when America was great, when still that you could go to church and hear people talk about Jesus Christ, when he wasn't the most forbidden name on the planet. And you know what's interesting, Greg? The Bible says that Jesus said, "Get thee behind me, Satan." That means that the devil follows in his footsteps. And now you've got open witchcraft. You've got more talk about pedophilia, child trafficking, child sacrifice. You've got the Arch of Baal. You've got the Egyptian god Anubis being paraded through this country. You've got the four horsemen of the apocalypse being mentioned in secular press while it's being denied in the pulpits. When America dies, I think it was Charles Spurgeon, the great preacher. If anybody wants to hear a great sermon, go look up Charles Spurgeon on the internet, Spurgeon. And he said that when America dies, it'll become because there's been silence in the pulpit. And what do people see when they see the pulpit? They see some evangelists begging for a $65 million Gulfstream jet. But that's no worse than, and I do not believe in that, by the way, but that's no worse than the pickpockets that are in the Senate and Congress who want to live under their, if you will, esteemed roles and their rules that are different from those of the common people.
But back to the desperation. Do you think
Yes.
the left and the New World Order rhinos and the New World Order, do you think there's an air of desperation to them?
I think on the level of the common politicians and those that we see on the playing field of what I call theatricus ridiculus or theatricus betrayicus, that's my Latinized version of the theater of not only the absurd but a betrayal. I think that the puppet masters behind the scenes are the ones that are really pulling the strings. And I see that the desperation is just another, if you will, psychological manipulation and control mechanism of the American public to get them at any cost to accept peace once they stir up the civil war that's coming. Look, how many people really believe that if they call 911, that evil that's in their front room or living room can be stopped? It's too late. And it's my contention that the evil that is the most dangerous isn't what's beyond the border. Good night. We're seeing, numbers of spies in this country, and the Iranians broadcasting, they're ready to turn loose their fifth column, their guerrillas within this country. And I talked to a general once, and he says, "Steve, we can intercept, and we got stuff we can deal with missiles. We can deal with a lot of missiles. We can deal with more missiles than most people think, but we can't deal with the enemies within selling us without, when every time we get a technological advantage, the next thing we know, we're having to deal with it on the battlefield against us." Now, people say, why would a general tell you that? You're just a guy in Montana. Well, because when you tell the truth, the people that still love this country want to tell the truth. It's just like the FBI. There are some good FBI agents that are blowing the whistle. There's good NSA people. There's good CIA people.
But the desperation,
okay, great. I'm trying to answer that, not talk around it. People are desperate for meaning and they're desperate for protection. And so in order to make that desperation play into the hands of those initiating it, they've got to make people see that it's hopeless. One way they do that is crash the economy. The other way they do that is destroy the middle class. One way they do that, the desperation is already being felt in this country by the middle class. The desperation is already being felt because most people, you know this, Greg, what can I do? I'm just one person. You can do a lot. You can stand up, you can speak up, and you can vote for people that got track records of going against. Here's a simple statement.
One other thing. Well, simple statement. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
with one other thing, okay?
Simple statement.
Trump comes along and says, we've got a great country. I want to make America great again. The reason that infuriates the left, the communists, the pinkos, and the slime, is because they hate the country that provided them with all the benefits. Look at all the billionaires, with the majority of them being leftists, with the majority of them having bailed out to China because they figure 1.4 billion Chinese customers is better than 300 million Americans. The national security ramifications of the biggest tech companies in this country should scare the whatever out of most people. The desperation is already in this country. Look at, the streets of San Francisco. There used to be a TV. Now they have to have a crap app. You know what a crap app is? It's an app on your whatever phone that helps you report human feces or human needles or whatever. You see, a nation is dying, and the roots of the death are what's concerning to me, not the fruit. The fruit follows the root. So the desperation is beyond just the situation with the immigrants. It is the policies that have favored immigrants and favored terrorists and favored those who hate this country over those issues. The veterans. Under Obama, how many veterans died needlessly? Under the Veterans Administration. By the way, somebody told me if they even bring my name up at a VA hospital, they bring in the shrinks. Why? Because I love veterans, and for the records I've been on, for the years I've been on talk radio, I've always had veterans ministry. God bless the vets. But again, the contempt for the military under Obama, the contempt for the Secret Service under the Clintons, is
they called them pigs.
Yes, and
Chelsea wants to run for office. She called her protectors pigs. That little weasel that ran a global charity fraud. Chelsea, you ran a global charity fraud.
Well,
sue me.
And when she basically, talked about hailing Satan for some day, then she backtracked on that. But let me share this.
One last thing. One last thing I want to ask you before we get off the desperation thing. Isn't the deep state also desperate? Their plans are not going according to plan. They have a big disruption has happened to their plans. Aren't they too desperate, the deep state?
I think that they're furious because I think God, who is the creator of heaven and earth, and people say, I don't want to hear this stuff. You better hear it, ladies and gentlemen, because God, in his, I would say, faithfulness to the prayers of his people, and prayers do change history, has given us a reprieve in Donald Trump. And you know what, Greg? I fight with professing claimants to Christianity about Donald Trump because I said this: look who hates him. Look who hates God. They're the same people. Yep. And you tell me you love Jesus, yet you hate the guy that's doing more for Christians, as Franklin Graham stated, than anybody in the history of the United States. It is a absolute prophetic truth that, and I'm telling you this, civil war is in the church, that which calls itself the church. It's in Catholicism, it's in Protestantism, and it will arise in Judaism. And see, people don't want to deal with the reality of a real devil doing his work. So are people desperate, Greg? Yes. Is the unseen hand desperate? I would say not at all. I'd say this plays into their global plan. By the way,
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think they are desperate.
Yep.
I think they are desperate. I think that their plan has been very much interrupted, and they are.
I just said that. Yeah. I'm in agreement with you, but let me share this.
This unseen hand. Listen, these unseen hands. They're not more powerful than God.
No, but the unseen hand is the devil and his agents. Okay?
He's not in control.
Christ he is going to be given control for 3.5 years in the book of Daniel. It was given power unto the beast to make war on the saints. We are at a spiritual war. You see, you've got empiricists and you've got people that are absolute denialists of the end of the supernatural, yet they're turning to Satanism. Kids are turning to witchcraft. Witchcraft is growing. Okay, where does that come from? It is not, it's who wins. I'm not saying God is not in control, Greg, but he gives the people what they want. The history of the world is pretty much like that. So is the deep state desperate? They're using desperation and they will use anything and everything they can to take away the word normalcy and historic peace, okay? Because one of the things that people forget in the book of Revelation, it was given power unto the beast to take peace from the earth. And that's where peace. You show me any place in the earth that's peaceful, and I'll tell you this, only for a short period of time, if not less than a year.
Steve Quayle, always very interesting. I look at the people that hate you and I think, I don't like them, so I like Steve Quayle. The mainstream media hates you. The psychiatric people hate you. The Democrats hate you. The rhinos hate you. And big tech hates you. All the people that I dislike.
Yes, and here's
so I like you.
Yeah, well, listen, Greg. Jesus said, "Blessed am I when all men speak evil for my name's sake." Look, I didn't choose what I'm doing. I believe God put me there. I believe the day when I'm off the scene, then whatever was born in him. And let me share this. Look at the Old Testament and look at the reality. No word of God spoken by a man of God will ever be received by the people of God at the time it's spoken. And Jesus dealt with the Pharisees by making this statement. He said, "Which of the prophets have your fathers not killed?" The people that claimed to be the religious ones were the ones that were killing all the prophets that God sent to warn them to turn away. So I love Donald Trump because everybody who hates him hates you, Greg, hates me, and they hate anything that is righteous. And by righteous, they hate anything that's good. This is why they destroy the children. And the fact is that people better get real, because the blood that's flowing is being sacrificed. It's human sacrifice being reintroduced. And oh, by the way, 26 years ago, I said, when you see cannibalism filling the headlines of the day, you'll know that we are beginning the tribulation. I stand by that statement. There is a biblical time period, and it's happening whether people like it or not, whether they say, "I don't believe in Jesus." Well, sooner or later, you're going to. That's your statement too, Greg. Yep. Sooner or later, you will.
That's right. My prediction is everybody believes in Jesus at some point.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, again, one of the things I think people need to understand, and this is critical, what's speeding out of control, and may I just say this, if people haven't, and this book, look, this is the end of my book writing. I'm doing movies now, but Terminated, The End of Man is Here. This is the most important, I think, book that I can write. If you will, it's my swan song telling people where it's all headed. And they can get this on stevequayle.com. But they can also go to Gen6, GENSIX.com, and they can register early for our next conference in Branson next year, which is September 12th through the 15th. We sold out 45 days in advance. We have people now saying, "I got to make my reservation." So go to gen6.com. And, Greg, it was the most amazing thing because
you had big time AI experts.
Oh, yeah.
You also had a big streaming video deal. These thousands of people looked at it there as well. So it was a big success. I mean, this is with no mainstream media press, no newspapers, just whatever on your, stevequayle.com.
Yeah.
I think I had you on and you promoted that, which I'm happy to do. I don't get paid for that, just so people know I don't get paid for that at all. So, but I'm happy for you because that's what you're doing. But that just shows you the interest in the AI. I have the book. You gave me a copy so I could interview you about this book. But go ahead. You were. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. We had Hugo de Garis, and it's fascinating because, when I put my title up, Terminate, The End of Man is Here, I'll give you the bottom line of Hugo de Garis. People can go on, gen6.com and get the videotapes of that or live stream it, not live stream it, but video on demand. And his opening statement was this: if human beings, now you'll think this is negative, Greg, and this is one of the smartest men in the world, the artificial brain designers. He said, if human beings don't understand that they either fight AI and win, or AI will win and destroy them. And his word was, there will be no human beings. He made the statement, a non-Christian, genius level guy. Some people consider him the third smartest guy in the world. He made the statement that this conference we had was a bellwether event. He said it will make history, not because he was a speaker, it had nothing to do with me or Tim Alberino or those of us that put it on, but because of the subject matter. He said this, when he was in China, he asked how many people would want to be totally augmented by artificial intelligence, everything else. He said everyone raised their hand in China. In the United States, in a non-Christian audience, he said it's 50-50. People would want to have all augmentation. They'd want to have the wisdom of the universe, 50-50. When he was at Branson, he asked how many people wanted to submit to that. I think there were 2 hands out of 3,000. And he could not, he was blown away. And I went up to him after that. And by the way, I got along great with him. And I said, Hugo, you've got to incorporate a 4th group of people in the 3 different groups of people that you write about. And he said, what is that, Steve? I said, you have to incorporate Bible-believing Christians who have read the prophecies and take the words of Jesus Christ seriously. I said, that's why you got the results that you got at Branson. So, Greg, if people can and would like to get, we're giving it a discount for them to register before the end of the year, GENSIX.com. From what we heard and from all over the world, I think we had 85 nations streaming it. It was the most important conference that anybody has ever attended. Now, that's making a big statement. And some of these guys, it costs us huge money to get in. And, you know, when we throw a conference like this, people say, oh, those guys make all this money. No, those conferences cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, God, yes, I'm sure.
You know, so here's what I'm saying. People, avail yourself of the information that's out there. And Greg, thank you for the work you do, and thank you for standing up for Jesus. You know, I got to tell you something. In my years of 26, and I've been on, you know, hundreds of radio stations, thousands of talk radio shows, 9,000 hours of broadcasting. Greg, I admire you because you're one of the few that's not ashamed of Jesus Christ. And I can tell you this, I've been told to tone it down, just shut up. And I left the first place I ever started broadcasting because I had a guy that told me, if you want to stay on, it was on KHNC in Johnstown, Colorado. He said, if you want to stay on this network, you'll quit talking about Jesus. And I said, the day you tell me to quit talking about Jesus, I'm off. I said, are you telling me to quit talking about Jesus? He said, yes, I am. I'm off. From that day forward, I was off KHNC. Then I got on other radio stations across the country.
One last thing, give us something positive to close it out with. Just give us something positive for people to hang on to. And I don't mean some lie, because you don't lie, but give us something positive. What is the one positive thought you can leave us with?
Well, first of all, from a biblical basis, that's where my positive thoughts come from, okay? Help. When you say, help me, God, you're asking the God of heaven to come to your aid. He will never leave us or forsake us. Sure, I know how many people hate us. I know how many people hate me. I know how many people want me dead. I know the threats I get. I know the attempts I get on my life and my family's life. But you know what? I'm still alive, and I'm telling people the thing that will carry you through is the Lord Jesus Christ. And somebody says, well, I thought you were just an author, not an evangelist. Listen, hope is in the name of Jesus. And I'll tell you what hope stands for, Greg. His overcoming power every day. And I love the acronym HELP. His everlasting peace, provision, and prosperity in the right way every day.
Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com. Of course, it is his last book. I'll just hold up your last book. You got many, you got 20-something odd books. You're a filmmaker now, and a good one. I've seen your videos. They're like, it could be on they could be on A&E and anywhere else. And actually, they've tried to get them on, but you do better by selling them on your own site. But anyway, listen, Steve Quayle, thanks for joining us today with a very interesting talk. Sobering talk and a very positive closing message. Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com. All the links will be in the after the interview section on usawatchdog.com. So you folks that are watching this on YouTube can go up to the right through and you can zip over to the page where I put all the most of the content and then all of his other links too. Steve Quayle, thank you for joining us today on usawatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg. God bless everybody. And remember, this is the most important election in your history or your children's future.